Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, maybe the only show that shows you how to close the wealth gap in your own life with the man who's done it for many, our wealth coach himself, Tyrone French. Hey, Tyrone.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Closing the Wealth Gap. I'm your host, Tyrone French. And before we get started, I just want to remind all of our listeners, first of all, thank you for listening to this program. Thank you for your input. Thank you for your suggestions. But I want to remind everybody, go to our website, click on that follow button. I also want you, and what it does, it just helps out the podcast as far as we know that we're putting out relative content. But also what I want you to do is, we created this app. It's a mobile app. It's right in your phone. And we priced it based on what we thought people would, based on budgetary constraints and things like that. It's free. I mean, I couldn't bring the price down any lower than that. So it's a
We'll
free,
pay you to listen.
It's a free mobile app. And all you have to do is just go to Coach at, well, put it to you like, we'll make it simple. If you're on your phone, just text Tyrone French to 36260. If you like text messaging, text Tyrone French to 36260. If you want to just go online, just go to TyroneFrench.coach. TyroneFrench.coach. And if that's too hard to believe or to remember, just go to CoachTyroneFrench.com. Any one of those links will get you to that app. The articles and the calculators alone are worth the value. So that being said, I also want to let people know that, hey, look, this show is for entertainment purposes only. We're not giving you financial advice. So don't interpret it as much. If you have like specific questions based on your jurisdiction or your area of the country, seek out a qualified professional that are licensed to do business in the area that you locate or that you reside. That being said, I'm looking over there and I see this distinguished gentleman. I think his name is Paul Roberts.
I thought you were going to say extinguished gentleman.
Not yet.
Not yet. He's still kicking.
It's still kicking. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I always look forward to the show, as I think your audience does, because you talk about stuff nobody else does, and you get me thinking. And darn it, aren't many things get me thinking anymore here today. I think I know it all, or I think, I don't know. I don't know what I think anymore here. So I'm open. Tell me what you're thinking.
But finance and wealth is, when you're talking about abundance, you're talking about prosperity, you're talking about financial aspects. Those are results. And a lot of times we forget that abundance is a result. Wealth is a result. It's something that happened after the fact. And so a lot of this stuff has to deal with your mindset. It has to do with your internal narrative based on how you perceive yourself. But one of the number one principles about finance and about accumulating any type of success that we tend not to think about, but we do every single day, is to project.
Yeah.
You have to project an image. And Hollywood does this better than anybody else.
We were talking about beforehand the show here.
Yeah.
I grew up watching the great John Wayne. I'm of that era. My father was John Wayne. And that was a totally manufactured persona. Marion Morrison, this, I think he was actually kind of even a sickly little kid. I may be wrong on that part of the story. But he wasn't John Wayne. And he was a football player, and he got
the He-Man, yeah.
And he started working as a grip, and he started working as a stunt double in these early westerns, and because he's a big burly-looking guy. And somewhere along the way, he did hundreds and hundreds of these B westerns, these low-budget westerns, before he came to prominence.
Not only western, but the action, the military. The war movies that he did.
Right.
Tons of war movies.
And nobody knew who Marion Morrison was, so he came up with this name, John Wayne. I'd have to go look up why he came up with that name. But somewhere along the way, he was smart enough to say, I can't just be another actor.
Right.
I've got to create my own brand.
Yes.
I got to create my own way of walking, that peculiar way through his hips and walk. That peculiar way of talking, that Yeah, that draw, I can't even imitate it, but we all know it when we hear it. He invented himself, and some would say he turned into that character. But whatever it was, that was not him originally.
And you know what? Now, people that listen to our show, they know that I'm a Navy veteran,
Right.
Navy and Army. But the United States Marine Corps, we kind of, if you're a sailor, we kind of let loose on the Marines. They're brothers, we love them, but they're the little scrunts to us. They're the little brothers because they're a subsection of the Army.
Yeah, right.
But the Marine Corps totally took on that persona of John Wayne.
It was so successful for him that they adopted it, became a recruiting poster for them.
And John Wayne never served a day in the military.
No.
Not one day.
Right. So you would think, the greatest hero of his generation wasn't a hero at all. He played one on television.
Well, I mean, look at Cary Grant.
Cary Grant's another one. I was going to bring that one up. Even more fascinating. The ultimate suave guy. Women adored him. Men wanted to be just like him.
Yeah.
He grew up Archie Leach, this poor kid with a heavy Cockney accent. And he totally invented himself along the way and turned himself into this suave character. That's not who he was.
We can go on and on, but even when you think about like modern day, as far as the branding, look at what's going on in Colorado right now with Deion Sanders.
I just marvel. I mean,
prime time.
He did it in football. And yes, he was a great player.
Great player.
But he was like Muhammad
Hall of
Ali,
Fame. Hall of Fame player.
But a great talker and a great trash talker, or whatever you want to say. He had a brand. He had an image. And love it or hate it, we all tuned in and watched it.
And to this day, I mean, if you look at Colorado's ratings, highest football ratings, they're off the chart.
A team that won what? One game last year?
One game last year. One game last season.
So, yes, hype sells, but it's more than hype. It's believing in it. I think to pull these characters off,
they have to be believable.
They have to be believable. I think almost internally, I got to believe, like actors have to take on this method acting. You got to really believe it. You got to see it. It's got to be internal.
But the issue, Paul, is that you have to want to believe it. You have to be so endearing to these characters that you want them to win. You want them to be that person because eventually you begin to see yourself in that person.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And you begin to mimic that individual, that character.
Oh, yeah.
So like I said, Hollywood they do it better than anybody else. But there's a scripture in the Bible. It says, calling things that are not as though they were. Mm-hmm. And so another way of putting it is that you're translating or transmitting or transmuting
right.
energy into matter.
Right.
You're taking fantasy into reality.
Yeah.
And it's a process, calling things that are not as though they were. Or another way of saying it is fake it till you make it.
Yeah, right.
Fake it till you, and a lot of people don't like that cliche as far as fake it till you make it, but everybody on this planet has to fake it until they make it. You have to internalize it. You have to have the imagination or have the image first before that thing ever manifests itself.
I remember reading about Jim Carrey. He's dropped off the radar screen, but for a few years ago, not that many, he was all over the movies. The crazy man with the rubber face and the comedian, right?
Right.
And I read early on, he grew up very impoverished. His parents were very, very poor. They were like some traveling hippies or something, and they were always just moving around and very happy but poor,
Right.
Lived in some rural parts of Canada and stuff. Anyway, somewhere along the way, he decided, I'm going to be Jim Carrey. I'm going to be this character. I'm going to become this famous actor. And he wrote himself a check, so the story goes, for $10 million.
$10 million.
Yeah. So
kept it in his wallet.
Kept it in his wallet. We've all heard that story.
Yes.
I thought, wow.
He told that story on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Did he? Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of people, they looked at it like, they were like, wow. But if you look at his track, he started out at the Laugh Factory or the comedy store.
Oh, yeah.
And he was performing with Damian Wayans. Remember the Wayans brothers?
Well, because he was, that's how he got to fame first on the Fox show, whose name escapes me now, with Damian Williams as the star of the show. What was that called?
In Living Color.
In Living
Color.
Yeah, right.
And so it goes back to wanting to do something, but then all of a sudden those connections start to form.
Yeah.
He would have never been on In Living Color had he not met Damian Wayans at the comedy store.
Right. Well, yeah, they've been, And it was a strange. It seemed like a strange fit. He didn't necessarily. I don't know. He was such an oddball character, and he would play these bizarre characters, but it stood out. And the other comedians let him do that. I guess that's what's odd. Usually, you think it would be, is it Damon or Damien? I always forget it.
Yes.
Damon. Whatever it is, it's his show. And the Wayans brothers.
Well, Keenan Wayans, he was the producer.
Yeah. So usually, hey, I'm glad you're
funny. Who actually
had
had a relationship with Eddie Murphy.
Ah, okay.
So we're talking about the connections and these things happening before the projections, before they even manifest.
My point is that they allowed him to blossom and grow, whereas other people would say, "Hey, you're too funny. Tone it down. This is my show."
Yes. But so the issue was that one day he said he was going to be a millionaire, and he wrote himself a check, and he put $10 million on that check. And one day he was negotiating for a deal. I think it was one of those Dumber and Dumber sequels. And the dollar amount that he negotiated his contract for was $10 million. $10 million.
He turned it into fruition. He made it come true. He made his dream come true.
But it's not just Jim Carrey. We all do that. All of us do that. With all of our dreams and all of our goals and all of our aspirations, it's just some people, they have the will to see it through.
I have a very good friend. I won't name him or call him out, but when he was in high school, he was a real nerd. Thick glasses, people laughed at him. And he said, I'm not going to be that kick the sand in my face kind of guy anymore.
Right.
He started working out. He ditched the glasses. He got contacts. And by the time he went to college and after college, because he got to restart. Nobody knew who he was in high school. He's off somewhere in college. He said, I'm not going to carry that narrative on any longer. And he became very handsome and a lady killer, as they say. I mean, attractive women, attracted success. He's a very successful person today. But he consciously said, I don't like this script. I'm tearing it up, changing it.
Calling things that are not as though they were.
Yeah.
And again, I keep harping on this, but Hollywood does it best. They do it better than anybody. And so you watch these programs, it's almost like even when you're watching the Avengers franchise, and you see people flying around in these suits, and you see this big old giant Hulk, and they're at the end of the day, they're winning, yada yada yada.
Right.
And people buy into these franchises. And they begin to see themselves in these characters, and all of a sudden they begin to think, well, hey, look, I can do this, I can do that, blah, 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 blah.
But the secret of, I got to, I'll geek for a moment here. I got to meet the great Stan Lee early on when I was up in Hollywood. And in fact, I think I have somewhere a card from him.
I did not know that.
So for a little short while, I was like somebody that could say I know Stan Lee. And anyway, I won't go into the details of how that all happened, but I got to know him. And the genius, as he told me, and as he told others, I didn't figure this out, what of Marvel characters, as opposed to Superman and Batman. Superman and Batman were always powerful. The Marvel characters all were us because basically they're weak. Peter Parker could save crime, but he couldn't get a date.
Right.
Captain America was the weakest guy until he took the drug.
Exactly.
Steve Bannon was a geeky guy until he became the Hulk.
Exactly.
They all had the geek. So you could see geeky kids like me who love these comics would just say, "Oh, so it is possible. I can turn into something I'm not."
Calling things that are not as though they were. And that's the perfect analogy. So when it comes to finance, a lot of people are impoverished because they see themselves living in poverty. Mm-hmm. They fantasize. They imagine themselves in lack, in struggling, and they become addicted to that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it takes something that's going to knock them off track, or to see somebody, or to be in another relationship or an association with somebody to say, hey, look, why are you doing it this way? Mm-hmm. Why did you say that? Why are you thinking like that? And they'll always come back, well, because they'll rationalize why they are in the fix that they're in. And then, but a wise man will say, have you ever thought about doing it like this? Not you should do it like this. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about?
Imagine.
Have you ever imagined doing it this way. And a wiser person, not a fool, but a wise person will say, you know what? I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And now that seed is planted.
Well, that's what you do every week in this thing. You get people to think of something they never thought of before, to look at it from a different angle, and hopefully to plant the seed to change, to growth.
What I want people to understand is that everybody is projecting. Even psychologists talk about, people wearing masks,
right?
And playing roles. So everybody's projecting. My point is, if you're going to be on this planet
I'm actually
anyway,
a very young guy. I'm just projecting to be an older guy with a gray beard. This is all a rubber mask. Yeah.
Wait a minute. We're going on what 40, 45 right now?
Yeah, 45. I remember when they made 45.
Man, I tell you what, you don't look a day over 70.
Yikes! I haven't hit that one yet. All right, okay.
but all kidding aside, but again, we do this projecting, and all of a sudden we find ourselves, and I gave the same story, and I'll say it over and over and over again about the elephant, that baby elephant.
That was a powerful story. I've used that
and
so many
times.
They,
when that elephant is young, they'll put that chain around his leg, and there's no way, no matter how often he struggles, there's no way he's going to break that chain.
Right.
And so it gives up, and so it grows up now, and eventually, you can take that same elephant that's now 20 times larger than it was when it was a baby, or 10 times larger than it was when a baby, and just put a small little rope around its leg, and it'll never try to escape. And we do the same thing with ourselves mentally.
Right. I'll give you another one. So give you another example. I want you to comment on this. I've known people who somehow broke out of the paradigm. They won the lotto.
Okay.
You read about it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm poor. I'm going to fantasize. Maybe someday I'll hit the lottery. And they do. By God, they're the one in a million that does. How many of them end up broke a few months later, a few years later?
A larger percentage end up broke. Yeah. A very large percentage.
And isn't that... So they finally broke free, but they didn't break free mentally. They still think, this isn't for me. I don't deserve it. I can't control it. I don't know what to do with it. And they blow it.
Because they don't understand that money cannot make you rich.
Well, that too, but I'm saying, aren't they still trapped in the poverty mentality?
Absolutely. They're still stuck in the poverty mentality.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you hear people say, well, they make $100,000 a year, and they wish they made $150,000 or $200,000 a year, or even $300,000 a year.
Right.
The dollar amount doesn't matter if the mentality doesn't change.
Right.
You're just going to find yourself in the same position. You're going to have more stuff. You're going to have more liabilities, more debt, more headaches, and you're just on a larger scale doing the same thing.
I'll give you another example. I've known a couple of people, I won't call them out, but who, for one reason or another, couldn't lose weight. And they were always overweight. Not just a couple of pounds, but a lot overweight. Hundreds of pounds overweight. And so in desperation, they go get one of these surgeries where they tie off your stomach or whatever they do.
Yeah.
And by God, they
lost
the weight.
Gastric bypass?
Gastric bypass,
yes.
That's what it is. And so many of them, the couple I knew two like this, within a year or two, somehow put the weight back on, which would seem impossible. Your stomach has been tied off. But they were uncomfortable with this new persona. They didn't really think it was them.
Right.
And some psychologists would say, maybe this was the crutch. And when you took away the crutch, now I don't have any reason to say my life isn't the way I want it. I am the way I am because I'm fat, and nobody will love me or like me or whatever. Now you're not fat anymore. Maybe people still don't love you or like you or whatever here. Then you got a deeper problem here. It's not just the fat. I'm poor. There's no way around it. And okay, so I hand you a bunch of money. Well, that didn't make me instantly happy and successful like I thought it would. You've got to really see yourself. You got to really believe it, and then you got to be ready for it.
Here's the thing: the subconscious mind is so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
People, they recognize their conscious mind because they hear this voice in their head.
Right.
But it's not. But the subconscious mind that's calling the shots.
I hear your voice in my head all the time. I start doing the show. Little voice whispering in my head sounds just like you.
So it's the program, Paul. I mean, thanks for the compliment. But it's the programming that's going on. It's the narrative that's going on. So it doesn't matter. Like you said, you can have gastric bypass surgery and still put the weight back on. It's like being in the winter and setting your thermostat to 78 degrees. and it's 50 degrees outside, but the thermostat is set to 78. You can act. Let's say if you decide to turn the heat up a little bit because you want it to be a little bit warmer, but the thermostat is still on, it's going to automatically bring it right back down to what? 78 degrees.
Yeah, right. Well, so you're saying we got a built-in thermostat that keeps us at a certain temperature all our life here? Hot or cold, good or bad, up or down, rich or poor?
Rich or poor, whatever it is. It's a thermostat. And so again, once you understand the internal, it's almost like trying to put a bike together without the instructions.
Yeah.
And you see all these bikes around. And so what you're doing is you're following somebody else's example of putting the bike
like
together.
That. I guess there's 2 wheels and not 3.
And again, it'll function.
Yeah.
But it's always breaking down. It's always, something is rubbing against something. That the chain is always breaking. The handlebars are always loose because you're not following the manuals or the operating procedures based on how it should be. So once somebody comes to that's a technician or somebody that they love putting bikes together, and they look at your bike and they say, "Wow, that's interesting."
Interesting.
I mean, it's functional.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
But
the chain would go up here and around that.
If you keep doing this, you're going to end up hurting yourself. Oh yeah, well I've been to the emergency room 3 or 4 times, because of this bike. The pedal fell off and. Or the handlebars. So I went right and the wheel went left. And so what I'm saying is that a coach, a professional, can look at somebody's situation and say, why?
If only I could find a good coach.
Yeah, where
could I find a good wealth coach?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of good coaches out there.
Where could I find my Deion Sanders? I need some prime time in my life here.
You know what? I tell you.
Because I'll tell you what, before you say that, you do point out a powerful thing. As much as I and so many others said, Deion Sanders is a great player, but he's a big talker. And so when he came and started talking big, I'm going to do this, and I'm like, yeah, come on, Deion. It takes more than being a great player to turn around a lousy program. It ain't just about get these kids motivated. You got to get some better players and some better plays, and it's going to take a while. And I still believe in the long term, it's going to take. But he got a lot farther, a lot faster than I would have given him credit for.
You know why? Because again, it's not just talk. Yeah. The talk is the marketing. The talk is the branding. But look at the coaches that he has around these kids. He has great coaches around these kids. And then look at the people that he has on the sideline that's just adding all this enthusiasm, all this energy. And again, going back to emulation, he has Hall of Fame players on the sideline. And now these kids are looking at themselves saying, wait a minute, this is a position I want to be in one day. In order for me to get there, I have to perform now in the present. So now what they're doing is they're performing at a level that they should always be performing at, but prior to that situation didn't believe that they could perform on that level. If that makes sense.
So much. I'm always amazed. I sometimes think, well, okay, so if I believed I was going to make some more money, I might make a little more money. But you're saying belief is the critical linchpin that unleashes everything. If you don't believe, nothing happens.
There's a scripture in the Bible that says, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believes. So Deion he's a man of God. He's a man of faith. He believes the Bible. And so, and on his first, when they won that game against, what was the first game?
It was a big game. I forgot. It shocked everybody.
Oh man, the name of the school is. I'll think it'll hit me in a minute. Yeah. But at the end of that press conference, he said, "Do you believe now?"
And many of us said, "No, that's just a fluke." And then he did it again.
Did you believe?
Almost did it again against USC.
But again, he's following a principle.
Yeah.
If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believes. As a matter of fact, without faith, it's impossible to please God. So you got to look at the situation based on, well, what is God? Who is God in this scenario?
Oh boy, you're going to go deeper. We only got 2 minutes to go into that one here.
But my point is, everything is cause and effect.
Yeah.
There's a system. There's a system that we're operating in.
It really does start with belief, and too often we think belief might help, but that's not really going to make a difference. Whether I believe. In fact, I'll give you another weird thing. So and I thought of this now. This is a strange analogy. Years and years ago, when I was dating, up in Hollywood, all these wacky actresses. And one of these actresses came to me, I dated a couple of times, and she believed in this, I think it was Namrang Horenge Kyo or something. It was a type of transcendental meditation. And if you just say this mantra over and over and over again, magic things happen.
Okay.
And I said, I can't believe that. She said, you don't have to. You just do this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and it will manifest itself. And I just found that hard to believe. Is it that simple? Is it just I follow the practice, or do I got to really believe in what I'm saying?
You can call it whatever you want to call it. But let's say if you're on your way to the LA airport.
Right.
And you hop on the 405 and then all of a sudden you take the 105 freeway, you're going to end up at the LAX.
Whether you believe it or not.
So it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. Doesn't matter what you call the freeway.
Yeah,
you're going to end up in that destination. So when you understand the psychology of it, even in the Bible says that, you know, the sun rises or rains on it shines on the just and the unjust.
Right.
So the principle works. I mean, success, you attract success. So you attract it.
I guess what I'm saying is, if people don't believe what you're saying today, but still try it, is it still going to work, or do they have to really buy into it and believe it? TCU, that's who they'd be.
TCU, yeah.
Went to the national.
When you buy in and believe it, what it does is helps your confidence level. See, first, people are operating in fear. You got to understand that first and foremost. Most people are operating in fear. They're not operating in faith.
Yeah.
So when you turn off that fear, and the only way that you turn off the fear is through courage. You don't repeat, or you have to replace the negative thought with a positive thought. You got to replace the negative thought with a positive.
Not enough just to turn off the negative. You got to put something in its place.
In order to change something, you got to change it.
Right.
So that's right. You got to put something in its place. So what overcomes fear is not saying I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Is being courageous. It's changing it with courage. And so once you get to the point where you're in that point as far as now you're out of doubt, because it's fear, doubt, and then disbelief. The courage combats the fear. The confidence combats the doubt. And the belief combats the disbelief. But again, you don't even have to articulate that. You don't even have to understand that that's the process that you're following. You just have to believe that the person told you this is how it's going to happen. And if you continue to do this, you're going to end up here. And once you start seeing those results, then you all of a sudden, again, you begin to believe.
So in place of me believe in somebody else. Those kids, I'm not sure, believed in themselves just because he said you can do it. But they believed in Deion Sanders because he is who he was.
Move to the front of the class. I mean, that's it. And it's just that simple. It's just that basic. And the military does it better than anybody else. I mean, as far as that belief system, you take a raw recruit, a raw civilian that doesn't know anything about the military. And at the end of 8 weeks, they're shining. Why? Because they believed in their drill instructor, that drill sergeant. That company commander that was leading them and directing them.
I may not do it, but I believe you can do it. And if I just follow you and listen to you, I'll get there.
But that's what a coach does. That's what a trainer does.
So do you think, I hope people are hearing this, because there's an obvious light bulb. My light bulb goes on in my head. So maybe if I can't believe myself, maybe I start by believing in somebody like you and what you're telling. Maybe I give it a shot. Maybe
when you go to church on Sunday, what that person in the pulpit, your pastor, your minister,
priest,
whoever
rabbi,
whoever, what they're doing is they're giving you hope.
Yeah.
They're giving you hope. And that hope is getting rid of that despair that's inside of you. It's replacing that despair.
Amen.
So now that you have the hope, now you're open to start to make the change, to do the manifestation.
And remove the block that may be keeping you from getting what you want.
So we can say, like you said, minister, preacher, rabbi. I just tend to use the term coach. Because I don't care who you are. The Chicago Bulls would have never been the Chicago Bulls without Phil Jackson.
Michael Jordan said that all the time. As great a player as he was, I needed a coach. I couldn't have gotten there by myself, much less a team. Maybe I can push myself, but I needed everybody to play. I can't be in every position everywhere.
And the LA Lakers would not have three-peated without an excellent and outstanding coach. And Shaq said it himself. I had to buy into it. And Phil Jackson went to Shaq and said, hey, look, if you just buy into this, you're going to be MVP of the league and MVP of the what? Of the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, he believed Phil Jackson. He did exactly what Phil Jackson told him to do. And guess what happened? He became MVP of the league and MVP of the finals.
Yeah. It's great. We've all seen great teams. We've all seen great collections of players. I could give you a dozen over the last few years. And people say, that's the dream team. Basketball, football, baseball. Doesn't happen. Because they don't play together, they don't have a common purpose. Everybody's out for themselves. Whatever the answer is, doesn't work, doesn't mesh. Somebody's got to put it together. Somebody's got to lead them and show them how to do it, like a drill sergeant, like a company commander leading you up the hill here. There's a purpose and a place for a coach. We all need one. We can't always find one, and we don't always believe them. I think that's the problem. We don't believe in any authority, so we don't believe anybody. I'm not sure. What do you know? What do you know? What do you know? I don't know that I believe or trust anybody.
Well, people believe in our results.
Yeah.
And see, here's the thing, though. That's the scary part. Because most people, they have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, right.
But your real pioneers, they have faith first. They believe first, and then it manifests.
Isn't that the problem? Why so few Americans call themselves people of faith anymore? They don't believe in anything.
But again, Paul, that's the difference between 5% of the population and 95% of the population.
Yeah. Well, which side do you want to be on?
That's the choice. And that's the decision that people have to make every single day.
Yeah.
Do you want to be a part of the 5% or do you want to be a part of that 95%?
And the radical thing you're saying to me, if I'm hearing it right, is it starts with that choice. I have to decide and say, I didn't choose. I was born like this. I was born here. I was born with limited options, family. I had all these. Come on, I got all these obstacles in my way here.
That's their belief.
Yeah.
That's the belief that they're fighting against.
Right.
That has to be changed. And again, I'm not saying this out of something that's happened, that I read in a textbook. I live this, Paul. I live it.
Yeah, you certainly rose and made yourself something more than others in your neighborhood.
So let's do this. If you like this show, if you like what you heard today,
how could you not?
Reach out to us. Just pick up your phone and text Tyrone French to 36260, or just if you want to go online, just go to TyroneFrench.coach, or coach@TyroneFrench.com. We got a reply line where you can leave a message 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
24 hours a day, I can come and say, you're full of baloney here.
Just call 877-296-5192. I'm going to give you the number again, 877-296-5192. Leave a suggestion. Leave a comment. If you like the show, say you like the show. If you didn't like the show, let us know what we need to change. What some of the things that you think
and
that we should do.
Tell us if you believe.
Tell us if you believe. Tell us if you believe.
I believe we're out of time. But I believe this is exactly the message people need to hear at the right time in the right place, because we have lost belief. We have lost hope.
I believe that.
And that's my general feeling. That's what I believe. And I think it's all time for us to find some faith in somebody, something. And maybe it starts with ourselves.
It's time for us to start calling things that are not as though they were.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. I don't even know what to say. I'm going to call it as if it was. This is the end of the show, even though it's really not. They can continue to contact you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. That's our show for this week. Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, the only show that shows you how to take control of your financial future. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.